Welcome to Lady Rams Hoops Weekly. I'm Joe Gilloway with Linglestown Gazette Sports. Lady Rams Hoops Weekly is your baseline to baseline source for all things Central Dauphin girls basketball. We are brought to you by our title sponsor, Econ Wealth Management. Going to talk about a handful of things today. Big win over Harrisburg last night. Definitely going to cover that for a little bit. Lost to Cumberland Valley last Friday night. It's worth talking about. We'd maybe like to put it behind us, but it happened, and we promised to report on all the games, so that'll be one. Our upcoming games tomorrow night against Central Dauphin East, our sister school, another big rivalry, and then the girls' trip down to Wilmington, Delaware for the Diamond State Classic, which is an annual tournament that I believe it's heading into its 27th year. That brings some of the top programs, at least in the tri-state area, and I believe probably a little bit outside of that even. And it's worth noting that the Lady Rams do open up with a school by the name of Ursuline Academy, who are the reigning state champions in the state of Delaware. So there's going to be some competition down there. We're going to have a few housekeeping notes, and then later on, we'll bring in our special guest for the week, Jamie Brann, who had a really nice game last night. So the Harrisburg game, it was a flat-out brawl. I mean, played with good sportsmanship, and when I say a brawl, I mean just the girls went at it, and they played really, really hard, and they were getting bumped around and knocked to the ground, and no technical fouls by any players or coaches. It wasn't that kind of brawl. But really what, as a fan, which is what I am once these games start, really what you want to see in a basketball game. So, I mean, and you really didn't know until the last sort of inside of a minute, what the outcome would eventually be. And that can really be, in my eyes, a defining game, a game that tells this team what and who they can be, because there may have been some question marks, as early in the season as it is, after the loss to Cumberland Valley. It's easy for a player or a team to question themselves, and those questions were probably answered last night. At least they know what they're capable of after last night's game. So anyway, the final was 45-37. Central Dauphin led for most of the game. I think they might have lost the lead one time, maybe in the second quarter, and then the Rams got the lead right back after that. So, and they ran with Harrisburg when they had to. What we talked about pregame last night was that the teams had two totally different styles of games. Harrisburg's more sort of run and gun and very athletic. Central Dauphin and Coach G runs a more deliberate half-court set offense, and so I said that basically something had to give, and it really didn't. I mean, Harrisburg didn't take Central Dauphin out of their game offensively. They would still get the ball down low. They'd get it into the hands of one of the guards, normally Sam Gress, and they'd set up their offense, and they'd look for the shots that they were hoping to get. So. And on defense, Central Dauphin was up and down the floor with Harrisburg. I saw a side of us defensively, of the Rams defensively, that I wasn't sure they were capable of. And, they pulled it off from tip to buzzer. They stuck with Harrisburg the whole time. The two big stars for Harrisburg are Jamie Brann and Amaya Woodyard. They held Brannon to 10. Points, and Woodyard to 6. Brianna McCullough, worth noting, another really top-notch guard. She ended up with 15 and 4 three-pointers. So she picked up some of the slack on offense, but if you can hold a player like Jamie Brann to 10 points, and it was a tough 10 points for her. I mean, she missed a lot of layups, and I'd say most of them were because she was contested. And she also she was at the free throw line quite often, and she missed a handful of free throws too. But the bottom line is the Rams forced her into some frustrated play, and she didn't come up too big offensively. So it was a breath of fresh air to know going in that there were two players that you really wanted to stop the most, and they stopped them both. They shut them down pretty much, both girls. Sam Grass, Roman Chalk, and Delaney Lackner all came out injured at one point. Oh, and Faith St. Clair all came out of the game at one point or the other with injuries that they eventually were able to overcome on the bench and get back in. But it really caused Coach G to have to scramble for substitutions. A lot of times or most of the time, you want to know who you're going to sub and when, and it's sort of more of a calculated or measured type of thing for a coach. He had to just grab a girl and say, get out there in a handful of situations, I believe all in the second half, and he did a great job. We got a chance to see, again, Delaney Lackner played a lot of minutes last night, but we got a chance to see Gabby Starsinek get in last night in her first sort of more meaningful game. She's played a handful of varsity games, mostly at the end of games that aren't quite as important as last night's, and she got in there, and I couldn't have been happier with what she provided. She protected the ball. She knew what her role was. She carried it out, and I'm sure that the coaching staff and Gabby herself will be able to walk away from that game and say, hey, she can do this, or I can do this, because in my eyes, she's ready to play some more, put in some more time on the court, and if she could do it in that game last night, I think she could probably be in and contribute in just about any game there is, or any game really. Delaney Lackner, a couple times she got into situations with players a lot bigger than her. The one time was, again, Brannon, who's a power forward, and she's really big. She looks twice Lackner's size, and Lackner's one of those players, you'd want to take to the trenches with you. She doesn't back down, and she was pushing and shoving when she felt the need to, and everything but pounding on her chest out there. And if her teammates didn't take notice of that, that was just something that was at the right times. It looked like Harrisburg was trying to intimidate our players a little bit, and Delaney was having none of it. So that was great to see. Every team needs a player or two like that. So the one thing that typically it could be alarming or a concern is only scoring 4 points in a quarter. And that happened last night, the Central Dauphin, in the third quarter. They've been struggling a little bit in third quarters. But for whatever reason, it didn't seem to have that same feeling last night, because Harrisburg only scored 5. They went into halftime, I believe, up 5, and they went into the fourth quarter up 4. So when you're not scoring much, but you're not allowing the opposition to score much either, it was pretty close to a wash. And, Harrisburg wasn't making it easy to score. So getting through the third quarter, holding Harrisburg to 5, not making any really big mistakes, just sort of getting shut down and by Harrisburg's defense wasn't that big of a deal. They knew what they had to do heading into the fourth quarter, and they did. Free throws were, maybe we could call the difference in the game. Central Dauphin was 16 of 22 from the free throw line. Harrisburg was 4 of 13. And CD made lots of big free throws down the stretch. So it was as much of a total team effort as you'll ever see in a team sport. And I know that total team effort thing sort of gets overused a lot. But there wasn't a girl out there last night who didn't contribute to a pretty good degree. I mean, even the ones that were only in for a couple minutes, they gave us a couple minutes of really, really good play and a lot of heart and a lot of hustle. Coach G coached an awesome game. I mean, a lot of times you might be only as good as your last game, but and if that's the case, then Coach G is one heck of a coach, and I think he's one heck of a coach anyway. And it was interesting that he came in for a real brief interview on his way to the locker room last night. And he did the same Friday night after the Cumberland Valley game. And his demeanor was exactly the same after Cumberland Valley as it was last night after Harrisburg. He knew that that Cumberland Valley wasn't going to be the end of the world, and that there would be another game coming up soon. And he was happy as can be last night after the Harrisburg game. But, you go into the locker room, you congratulate the girls, maybe send out a couple of high fives, and it's on to the next preparing for East. But it was just a well coached game. What he had to do with the personnel in the second half, with, again, those 4 injuries, they all recovered from them. But he brought in the right personnel who did the right things, managed the clock well, got the girls to stay emotionally in check, to sort of reel it in a few times when they might have been getting a little excited. And that's coaching there, because, leave athletes sometimes to their own devices when the emotions just start to run high, and there's no stopping them unless somebody else can step in, and he did last night. So, Coach G, hats off to you. Great game coached. Jamie Brann had 11 last night. Faith St. Clair 11, and Carol Weber 10, and that's Carol's 3rd double-digit scoring game in 4 games, and I'm pretty sure that has her at. She scored 8 on the 4th game, which would have been CD's 3rd, Cumberland Valley, and so she's averaging right around double digits for the season. And Sam Gress, she didn't score a lot last night. She didn't have a single field goal, but she played about as good of a game as I've seen Sam play. I've watched her play since she was a freshman. Harrisburg was on her hard, up and down the court the whole game, and their plan was to stop her offensively, which they did for the most part. But Sam figured out how to adapt to that situation. She wasn't forced into taking bad shots, and she protected the ball. She shared the ball with her teammates, and just one of the better games you'll see a point guard ever play. So great game, Sam. Multiple monkeys off the back with that. I said to Coach briefly, I think you got a huge monkey off your back and last night, and really, you could say that the monkey could have been beating Harrisburg for the first time in 6 games. The monkey could have been winning the next game after that game Friday night when they lost by 24. The monkey could have been, now they're 2-1 in the Commonwealth rather than 1-2. So there was a lot of significance in coming out on top last night, and it was just one of those games where you didn't want to walk out of the gym and cross the parking lot with a loss, and the girls made sure that didn't happen. I wanted to mention, too, briefly, if there's anybody watching that was at the game last night, a young lady on Harrisburg's JV team had what looked like, I believe, a seizure, and she was down on the court for right around 30 minutes, and I did speak to somebody this morning. She was held overnight for observations in the hospital, and she's doing fine now. So it sort of maybe left a question mark when she left the gym on a stretcher, and she seems to be okay. So it was just a concern naturally for the whole gym. I'm just going to touch on the CV game very briefly here. I guess as briefly as I can, actually. You won't find a team, especially one as young as Cumberland Valley, play a game that good. And I spoke with a guy that connected to the athletic department over there, and he said it's the best game these girls ever played together. A lot of 9th graders and 10th graders, just one senior, and after midway through the first quarter, they just barely missed. And they played great defense. They hustled. They outplayed Central Dauphin. They whooped their tails, and they deserved it. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because that was like 5 days ago now. Real quick update on the Commonwealth Division. Let's see here. We got Mifflin County at 3-0 on the top there. Now, let's just say that probably they've played maybe 3 of the easier teams in the division. They have wins over Chambersburg, Carlisle, and State College. Central Dauphin is tied with Easton Harrisburg at 2-1, State College at 1-2, Cumberland Valley at 1-2 now, and Chambersburg and Carlisle both at 0-2. So things are starting to form a little bit, and you're starting to figure out where you need to go from here to maybe have a shot at the first half title. Lady Rams Hoops Weekly is brought to you by Econ Wealth Management. They're a financial services firm headed by Central Dauphin grad Steve Economopoulos and headquartered right here in the Linglestown area. Steve lettered in soccer and baseball here at Central Dauphin before going on to an outstanding athletic career at Shippensburg University. They can be reached at econwealth.com. Econ Wealth Management. They manage for you. They plan with you. We're also represented by Fabio's Italian Restaurant and Brick Oven Pizza. They're strong supporters of Central Dauphin Athletics. They've been catering for a lot of the sports functions for years here and take really good care of some of these teams. And they are conveniently located between the Grantville exit of I-81 and Route 22. And Linglestown Firehouse Bar, located just off the square in the Linglestown Firehouse building. Linglestown Firehouse Bar, the best kept secret in town. And another company just joined us a week ago, Fit 39. And they are a personal trainer gym club. They are located in the building that used to be the Subway sub shop, right there where Bumblebee Hollow is. It's right on Linglestown Road, right off of Colonial Road. If you're looking at Bumblebee Hollow, the building sits down to the right-hand side there. So go in and check them out at Fit 39. East beat Cumberland Valley last night, 48-42. So there were two huge Commonwealth games last night between our game and East and CV, and that's really setting up a showdown. Both us and East are 3-1, 2-1 in the Commonwealth. Huge games by their big three, I would call it. Tierra Little, Anbrielle Green, also known as Ani Green, and Olivia Mikado. So the players are going to know each other well, have a lot of familiarity tomorrow night. A lot of them play together in the off-season, maybe spend some time together socially, but expect to see a real throwdown tomorrow night. And it's for at least a two-team share of the Commonwealth. Depending on what Harrisburg does. If Harrisburg wins, they'll stay tied at the top. If Harrisburg would lose and whoever wins this game tomorrow night would be at the top of the Commonwealth by themselves. So what's up next after that is the Diamond State Classic, which I mentioned a little earlier. It looks like Bill and I are going to try to get down there. And maybe we'll do just sort of like a abbreviated version of our Lady Rams Hoops Weekly. We have scheduled off to not do a show, but if we get the time and have the information to pass along, we'll certainly do so. And that's just going to be a tough 3 games, but it's going to provide a lot of experience for the girls and probably bring them back to Harrisburg more prepared for some big matchups that they'll have later in the season. And again, they're going to start with the defending state champ Ursuline Academy, and a few weeks from then, they're going to play the defending Pennsylvania state champion 6A classification Boyertown. So again, Coach G doesn't mess around when he schedules. So I guess that's going to be about it. I know I had a lot to say there, and maybe it was going to be a little longer than most of the shows, but there was a lot to talk about, and a lot's going on. I really feel like we're finally in full swing here. When you just get into the season, you have maybe an out-of-division or an out-of-conference game, and it doesn't feel quite like the regular season yet, and we're in there now. We're hunkered in. We have big games ahead of us. We have a couple big games behind us. So if you can get out to Central Dauphin East tomorrow night, they have a great gym. Help fill it up. Bring your green and white. Tip-off at 7:30. JV start at 6 o'clock, and we want to see you out there. If you've never been to a girls' basketball game and you're just more into guys' basketball, give it a shot. You'd be shocked. I mean, if you would have been in that gym last night and you saw me in there after the game, you would have come up and thanked me and said, Joe, you're right. You told us to show up. We did, and that was a heck of a game played by 2 great teams. So next we're going to transition over to our guest for the evening. Played a heck of a game last night. Number 22 in your program, Ms. Jamie Brann. And now we're going to bring in Jamie Brann. She's a forward for the Lady Rams team. Number 22 in the program.
Oh, it's not on this one side.
And on her uniform as well. She had a heck of a game last night. I don't have notes on Jamie, but I think she scored 11, if I'm not mistaken, and just contributed all over the court. probably one of the bigger games you've ever been involved in. Is that safe to assume?
That would definitely be safe to assume this year so far.
Okay, maybe not as big as the games down at Giant Center, but
No.
in terms of a regular season game, that had a feeling to it that felt a little different than a regular season game, right?
Yeah, and definitely having a game high of that point against Harrisburg is big.
Was that your career high score, 11?
Yeah, so far.
Okay, and how about banging down low? I mean, the one thing that I mentioned, like in the pregame, and I talk about all the time when I talk about high school girls basketball, is Jamie Brann. She's a tough player. You guys neutralized her last night. Was that part of your assignment, or you guys just sort of teamed up on her, or what? I mean, did you go head-on-head with Jamie quite often last night?
Well, we just kind of did what Coach wanted us to do. He told us one of the things we need to do is rebound and make sure Jamie doesn't get that ball. And that's what we did.
She earned everything she got. She ended up with 10 points, and I sort of had it in my mind if we could hold Jamie to 15 or 17 and Woodyard to about the same, then that would be a good formula as long as you hold the rest of them to 2, 3, 4 points. And keeping Brandon at 10 was just, I mean, you could see she was getting a little frustrated under there. I mean, she had to earn every single point, and I don't think she's used to that. Do you guys get a little bit of extra sort of energy now about what you're capable of on the defensive end after that?
Well, I think after what happened with us in CV, we needed what we did last night. We needed that, and we're just going to keep playing hard.
Right. It was sort of Jamie's alluding to the game last Friday night, which we sometimes maybe like to forget, but it happened, and that sometimes you have to learn off that. They took it on the chin against at Cumberland Valley last Friday, 50-26, and from that game to 3 nights later, I guess 3 or 4 nights later, it was just totally night and day. And so there's always something to be learned from games like that, the Cumberland Valley game, right?
Yeah, I would definitely.
So tomorrow night's East High, and I mentioned last night that this is a stretch of back-to-back-to-back rivalry games, really. I mean, Cumberland Valley's a big rival, Harrisburg's a big rival, and East High's your sister school. There's no doubt that's a huge rival, too. You feel like you're just not getting any breaks here with huge games?
Well, this happened last year with us, too, and, we fought through it. We started out 3-2 last year, and then we went on an 18-win streak, So, we got to face it, and we got to play through it, and we'll get through it.
Right. And then after that, you head to Wilmington, Delaware for the Diamond State Classic, right?
Yes, sir.
And I guess Coach probably filled you in that your opening game is against the defending Delaware State champion team, right?
Yeah.
Ursuline Academy.
Yes.
What do you hear about them?
They've had a few transfers out. I mean, we definitely have a chance if we play our game. We always have a chance if we play our game.
I agree with that. And at this point, what are your plans for after school, Jamie? Not today after school, after high school.
Go to bed.
Yeah, okay. That's why I cleared that up.
I'm still not unsure. College coach did come watch me play yesterday, gave me his card and stuff like that. So I'm still in contact with coaches, just haven't given a decision.
Fair enough. Yep. Okay. Before we let you go, we're going to play what we call keeping it light. All right?
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a few questions that are totally unrelated to basketball. Or maybe not totally unrelated to basketball, but to your team and you on the court. So do the best you can with these. Who is your all-time favorite athlete, male or female, any sport?
It would be women's basketball, Elena Deladon.
Very good. All right. Okay, and number 2, if you were to go anywhere, any restaurant, and you could order anything you want, what would that be?
It would definitely be Ted's Boneless Wings, mild.
Ted's Boneless Wings,
Yeah,
okay.
Fries.
All right, so when we had that interview with you and a bunch of the other girls, you weren't just joking around?
No.
I thought you were just carrying on. You really love Ted's Boneless Wings, huh?
Those are my favorite by far.
Side of fries.
Yep, side of fries.
Okay. You have a really good game next week. Maybe we'll go out and get you some wings, you and the rest of the team, with Coach G and
Yeah.
Coach Bob.
Yeah, bring them in.
All right, good answer. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Well, once again, this is Jamie Brann, number 22 Come out tomorrow night and check her out at East High. Big rivalry game, tip-off at 7:30. Jamie, thanks so much.
Not a problem. Have a good night.
You too. So thanks once again for tuning in. This is Joe Gilloway with Linglestown Gazette Sports, Lady Rams Hoops Weekly.